The Chicago skyline glittered outside my floor-to-ceiling windows as I finished reviewing the quarterly security audit for Morrison Industries. It was past midnight, but I'd learned long ago that success came to those who worked while others slept. My penthouse apartment downtown was quiet except for the hum of 3 monitors displaying cascading lines of code and network diagnostics. This was my sanctuary. Controlled, secure, predictable. My phone buzzed against the glass desk. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but years in cybersecurity had trained me to expect the unexpected. Ella Cruz speaking. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Miss Cruz, this is Special Agent Marcus Hale with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I apologize for the late hour, but I need to speak with you about some financial irregularities that have come to our attention. My fingers stilled over the keyboard. FBI. Financial irregularities. The room suddenly felt colder despite the radiator's steady hum. What kind of irregularities? I kept my voice level, professional. In my line of work, panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. Wire transfers totaling approximately $200,000 have been flagged by our financial crimes unit. The transactions originated from accounts linked to your Social Security number and address. Agent Hale's voice was steady, matter of fact. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss your involvement. My involvement? The words hung in the air like an accusation. I stared at my reflection in the darkened window. 30 years old, successful, careful to a fault. I'd built my cybersecurity consulting firm from nothing, one paranoid client at a time. I knew better than anyone how easily identities could be stolen, lives destroyed with a few keystrokes. Agent Hale, I can assure you I haven't authorized any wire transfers of that magnitude. Someone may be using my information fraudulently. A pause. That's what we're hoping to determine. Can you meet us tomorrow morning at 9? Our offices are downtown. Of course. I grabbed a pen, jotting down the address he provided. Should I bring my attorney? Another pause, longer this time. That's your right, Miss Cruz, but I'll be honest, cooperation tends to speed these investigations along. If you're a victim here, we want to help you. If. That single word carried the weight of everything I'd worked for. My business thrived on trust, on being the person clients called when their digital lives went sideways. If the FBI suspected me for financial crimes, my reputation would evaporate overnight. I understand. I'll see you at 9. After hanging up, I sat motionless for several minutes. $200,000. Wire fraud. My first instinct was to run diagnostics on my own systems, check for breaches, and analyze access logs. But even as my fingers moved toward the keyboard, a darker suspicion crept into my mind. I walked to my bookshelf and pulled out a framed photo from behind my collection of cybersecurity manuals. Maya and I at Navy Pier, maybe 2 years ago. She was laughing at something I had said, her arms slung carelessly around my shoulders. Beautiful, reckless Maya with her artist's eye and child's sense of responsibility. Maya who'd been texting me increasingly desperate messages about money lately. Maya who knew where I kept my important documents when she housed it last month. Maya who'd grown up watching me handle everything, bills, emergencies, consequences, while she drifted from one passion project to the next. I set the photo face down and returned to my computer. If Maya had done something this stupid, this criminal, I needed to know before I walked into that FBI office. I opened my banking portal and began scrolling through months of statements with the methodical precision that made me excellent at my job and occasionally terrible at being human. There, a credit inquiry I hadn't authorized 3 months ago. I'd noticed it, made a mental note to follow up, then gotten distracted by a client crisis. Below that, a small charge to a financial services company I didn't recognize. Another red flag I'd dismissed as a processing error. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Can't sleep. Miss you, Hermana. Love you. I stared at the message, sent at 12:47 a.m. Maya never texted this late unless she was drunk, scared, or both. The timing felt too convenient, too calculated. Like she knew something was coming and wanted to establish an alibi of sisterly affection. I typed back, "Miss you too. Is everything okay?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I closed my laptop and walked to the safe hidden behind a false panel in my bedroom closet. Inside, alongside my passport and emergency cash, was a letter my father had written before his death. I'd only read it once, on the day the lawyer handed it to me along with his will. "Mija," it began in his careful handwriting, "you have the strongest heart in our family, but also the softest. This letter is insurance in case your love for Maya ever puts you in danger." He'd known. Somehow, Dad had seen something in Maya that I'd been too close to recognize. The letter contained bank records, copies of identity documents, and a stern warning: protect yourself, even from family. Especially from my family. I'd thought he was being paranoid. Parents worry, I'd rationalized. They see dangers that don't exist. Now, with an FBI agent expecting me in 7 hours, I understood. Dad hadn't been paranoid. He'd been prophetic. I picked up my phone and dialed Rachel's number. If I was about to lose everything, I needed my best friend to know the truth. "Ella? Jesus, it's almost 1 a.m. "Rachel, I need you to listen carefully. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with the FBI about financial fraud. If something happens to me..." "Whoa, slow down. What's going on?" I looked at Maya's photo one more time, at her bright smile and trusting eyes. By tomorrow night, one of us would be facing federal charges. I just had to make sure it wasn't me. I think my sister has been stealing my identity. And I think she's about to find out that I'm not the same woman who's been covering for her all these years. The FBI field office in downtown Chicago was exactly what I'd expected. Sterile corridors, fluorescent lighting, and the kind of institutional beige that seemed designed to drain hope from the guilty and nervous energy from the innocent. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my most professional navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase that held my preliminary findings. Agent Marcus Hale was younger than I had imagined from his phone voice, maybe 40 with graying temples, and the kind of direct stare that probably made suspects confess to jaywalking. He led me to a small conference room where manila folders waited in neat stacks. "Ms. Cruz, thank you for coming in. Coffee?" Please, I needed caffeine. I'd spent most of the night gathering evidence, and my hands weren't quite steady. He poured 2 cups from a coffee maker that had seen better decades. "Let me start by saying that cooperation is always appreciated in these cases. Financial fraud investigations can drag on for years, destroying reputations, even when charges are dropped." The threat was politely delivered, but unmistakable. I set my cup down carefully. "Agent Hale, I want to be completely transparent with you. I believe someone close to me may have accessed my personal information and used it fraudulently." His eyebrows rose slightly. "Someone close to you?" "My sister, Maya. I've been reviewing my account since your call last night. I found several irregularities that coincide with times she had access to my home and personal documents." Agent Hale opened the top folder and spread several documents across the table: bank statements, loan applications, wire transfer records, all bearing my name, my social security number, my supposed signature. The amounts made my stomach clench, not just the $200,000 in wire transfers, but credit lines totaling another $150,000. "These accounts were opened over the past 4 months, he said, watching my reaction carefully. "The IP addresses trace back to locations in River North and Lincoln Park. Are you familiar with those areas?" River North was where Maya lived in her trendy loft. Lincoln Park was where she'd mentioned working part-time at an art gallery that had closed last month. "Yes, my sister lives in River North." "Can you prove you weren't involved in these transactions?" I opened my briefcase and withdrew a folder of my own. "I can prove someone else was." I slid bank records across the table. "These are screenshots from my legitimate accounts, showing my actual transaction history. Note the timestamps. While these fraudulent wire transfers were occurring,
I was in meetings with clients. I have calendar entries, email trails, and witnesses. He examined my documents, his expression shifting from skeptical to interested. You came prepared. I run a cybersecurity firm. When someone attacks my identity, it's both personal and professional. I pulled out printed screenshots of text conversations. These are messages from Maya over the past few months, increasingly desperate requests for money. I've been supporting her financially since our parents died 11 years ago, but recently her demands escalated. He read through the texts, Maya's messages growing more frantic with each screenshot. "I'm drowning, Ella. Just this once, I need help. Can you co-sign for a loan? I'll pay you back, I swear."
Did you co-sign for any loans? No, I offered to help her find legitimate work instead. She stopped responding to those offers about 6 weeks ago. Agent Hale leaned back in his chair. Miss Cruz, I'm going to be direct with you. The evidence against your sister is circumstantial at this point. IP addresses, location data, motive. It builds a case, but it's not ironclad. We'd need more to proceed. What kind of more? Device forensics, digital fingerprints, something that definitively places her hands on the keyboard during these transactions. He studied my face carefully. Are you prepared to help us gather that evidence? The question hung between us like a bridge I couldn't cross. Helping them meant betraying Maya completely, potentially sending her to federal prison, but not helping them might mean going down with her. Agent Hale, if I provide additional evidence that proves my sister committed these crimes, what happens to her? That depends on several factors: first-time offender, family circumstances, willingness to cooperate and make restitution. The prosecutor has discretion. And if I don't cooperate? His smile was thin. Then we investigate both of you equally. Your knowledge of cybersecurity could be seen as an advantage in committing sophisticated financial crimes. Your access to client networks might suggest additional opportunities for fraud. The implication was clear. Help them build a case against Maya or become a suspect myself. I thought about my father's letter, his warning about protecting myself even from family. I thought about my business, my clients who trusted me with their digital lives. I thought about Maya, probably sleeping off a hangover in her expensive loft, still believing she was untouchable because her big sister always cleaned up her messes. I'll help you, I said quietly, but I want to be present when you confront her. Agent Hale's expression sharpened. That's unusual, Miss Cruz. These operations can be dangerous. Maya isn't dangerous. She's reckless and entitled, but not violent. I met his stare directly. I need her to see my face when this happens. She needs to understand that I'm not covering for her anymore. He considered this for a long moment. If we proceed, there's no going back. Your relationship with your sister will never be the same. Agent Hale, my sister stole my identity and nearly destroyed my life. Our relationship ended the moment she decided to become a criminal. He gathered the documents into a neat stack. Give me 48 hours to review your evidence and consult with the prosecutor. If we proceed, you'll need to provide us complete access to your systems, your communications with Maya, and your cooperation in gathering additional evidence. Understood. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with another text from Maya. Want to grab lunch today? My treat. I stared at the message for a full minute. Her treat. With money she'd stolen from me, using credit cards opened in my name. The casual audacity of it should have made me angrier, but instead I felt something colder settling in my chest. I typed back, "Can't today. Busy with work." Her response came immediately. "You work too much, hermana. Life is short." Life is short. She had no idea how short hers was about to become. I drove home through downtown Chicago traffic, already planning my next moves. If Agent Hale wanted ironclad evidence, I'd give him a digital trail so clear that even Maya's charm couldn't explain it away. I'd spent years teaching clients how to protect themselves from identity thieves. Now I was going to teach my sister what happened when you stole from someone who knew how to fight back. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and Maya's photo, forcing myself to remember the signs I'd ignored. The memories came flooding back with painful clarity, each one a red flag I'd dismissed out of love, loyalty, or simple exhaustion from always being the responsible one. 3 months ago, Maya had been house-sitting while I attended a cybersecurity conference in San Francisco. She'd texted me photos of herself lounging in my kitchen, using my expensive coffee maker, posting Instagram stories from my balcony. Living like a queen in my sister's palace, she'd captioned one video. When I returned, small things felt off. My home office door, which I always kept closed, was ajar. Papers on my desk seemed shuffled. My laptop had been moved slightly, not enough for most people to notice, but I made my living noticing digital details.
Maya, did you use my computer while I was gone? I'd asked casually. Just to check Instagram, my laptop was being weird. She'd hugged me, smelling like my expensive perfume. Thanks for letting me stay, Hermana. Your place is so much nicer than my shoebox. I'd brushed off my unease. Maya had always been careless with boundaries, borrowing clothes without asking, using my Netflix password, treating my resources like her own. It was annoying, but harmless. Or so I'd thought. 6 weeks ago, Maya had called me crying at 11 p.m., her voice thick with what sounded like alcohol and desperation. Ella, I'm drowning. The gallery closed and I owe 3 months' rent. My landlord is threatening eviction. She'd sobbed into the phone. I can't ask you for money again, but I don't know what else to do. Maya, we've talked about this. You need a steady job, not another loan from me. I know, but just this once. Could you co-sign for something? I found a great opportunity, a small business loan to start my own gallery. It would solve everything. The request had sent alarm bells through my head. Maya had never shown real business accuracy, and her version of great opportunities usually involved get-rich-quick schemes or pyramid marketing. Send me the business plan first. Let me review the terms. You don't trust me. Her voice had turned cold. After everything we've been through, you still see me as the screw-up little sister. Maya, that's not. Forget it. I'll figure it out myself. I always do. She'd hung up before I could explain that trust wasn't the same as blind faith. 2 weeks ago, I'd received a credit monitoring alert about a soft inquiry on my credit report. When I logged in to investigate, I found an inquiry from First National Lending, dated the previous day. I'd never heard of the company and hadn't authorized any credit checks. I'd meant to investigate further, but a client emergency had consumed the next 72 hours. A healthcare company's network had been breached, and I'd spent 3 straight days rebuilding their security infrastructure. By the time I remembered the credit inquiry, it seemed like a minor glitch in a world full of digital noise. Now I understood it hadn't been a glitch. It had been reconnaissance. I pulled up my laptop and began a deeper dive into my financial records, approaching my own life like a forensic investigation. What I found made my stomach turn. The pattern was sophisticated for Maya's usual chaos. She'd started small, adding herself as an authorized user on one of my existing credit cards 4 months ago, using my card to pay for her groceries and gas, amounts small enough that I'd barely noticed in my monthly statements. Then she'd escalated. A personal loan for $15,000, approved using my income information and credit score. She'd had the money deposited into a new checking account opened in my name but linked to her address. Finally, the wire transfers Agent Hale had mentioned. $200,000 moved in chunks of $25,000 over 8 days. The money had gone to accounts in Maya's name, then immediately transferred to cryptocurrency exchanges. My hands shook as I traced the digital trail. Maya hadn't just stolen from me, she'd planned it. This wasn't desperation, it was premeditation. I called Rachel, needing someone to witness what I'd discovered before I convinced myself I was imagining it. Ella, I really need you to come over now. I have something to show you, and I need you to tell me I'm not losing my mind. She arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of tequila and the grim expression of someone prepared for war. Talk to me.
I walked her through the evidence, watching her face cycle through disbelief, anger, and finally, cold fury. "That manipulative little bitch," Rachel said when I finished. "Ella, this isn't borrowing or desperation. This is calculated theft." "She's my sister." "She's a criminal who happens to share your DNA." Rachel poured 2 shots of tequila. "How much did she take in total?" I'd been avoiding that calculation, afraid to see the final number. Now, I opened my spreadsheet and added up the fraudulent accounts, loans, and wire transfers.
$365,000. The number felt surreal, like something that happened to other people in news stories. Rachel slammed her shot glass down. "Ella, that's enough to buy a house. That's grand theft. That's a federal prison." I know. I stared at my laptop screen, at the undeniable evidence of Maya's betrayal. "Rachel, what am I supposed to do? Send my sister to prison?" "You're supposed to protect yourself. Maya made her choice when she decided to steal from you. Now you have to make yours." I walked to my safe and retrieved my father's letter, reading it aloud for the first time since his funeral. "Mija, you have the strongest heart in our family, but also the softest. Maya will always take the path of least resistance, and unfortunately, you have been that path since she was 16. I hope this letter is never necessary, but if you're reading it, she has crossed a line that love cannot excuse. Protect yourself, even from family, especially from my family. You cannot save someone who refuses to save themselves." Rachel wiped tears from her eyes. "Your dad knew." "He tried to warn me." I folded the letter carefully. "I thought I was being a good sister, taking care of her after Mom and Dad died, but I was just enabling her to become this." My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Found the cutest vintage dress today. Retail therapy helps with job hunting, right?" Kissy emoji. I showed Rachel the message. She read it twice, then looked at me with something close to pity. "Ella, she's not even trying to hide it anymore. She's flaunting it." I thought about Maya shopping with stolen money while I sat in my apartment calculating how long it would take to rebuild my financial life. I thought about her casual texts, her assumption that I'd never figure it out, never fight back. I thought about my father's words. You cannot save someone who refuses to save themselves. "Rachel, I need you to help me with something. Anything. Tomorrow, I'm going back to the FBI with everything I've found, and when they arrest Maya, I'm going to be there." Rachel studied my face carefully. "Are you sure? Once you cross this line, there's no going back." I looked at the photo of Maya and me at Navy Pier, at her careless smile and my protective arm around her shoulders. That version of us was already gone, destroyed the moment Maya decided to steal my identity instead of asking for help. I'm sure Maya needs to learn that actions have consequences, and I need to learn that love doesn't mean letting someone destroy me. I closed the laptop and put Maya's photo away. Tomorrow, I would stop being the sister who cleaned up messes and start being the woman who demanded justice, even if it broke both our hearts. The next morning, I transformed my dining room into a war room. 3 monitors displayed financial records, network logs, and communication threads. I'd called in sick to work, a lie that felt justified given that I was essentially working to save my own life. Agent Hale had been clear about what he needed: digital fingerprints that definitively tied Maya to the fraudulent accounts. Circumstantial evidence wouldn't be enough for a prosecutor. I needed smoking guns. I started with the IP address logs from the fraudulent accounts. Every online transaction left a digital footprint, and Maya wasn't sophisticated enough to cover her tracks. Using tools I developed for client investigations, I traced the login patterns. Bingo. The First National Lending account had been accessed 47 times over 6 weeks, always from the same IP address range in River North. I cross-referenced this with Maya's social media posts, matching timestamps to her Instagram stories from her apartment. The correlation was damning. Every fraudulent login coincided with Maya being at home. But I needed more. I accessed my home security system and pulled camera footage from the weekend Maya house sat. There she was, sitting at my desk,
my laptop open in front of her. The timestamp showed 2:17 a.m., long after she had texted me goodnight from my couch. My phone rang. Rachel. "How's the investigation going, Detective Cruz?" "Depressingly well. I have enough evidence to convict her 3 times over." I rubbed my eyes, exhausted by my sister's thoroughness. "Rachel, she planned this for months. This wasn't desperation. This was a con." "What's your next move?"
I need to get into her devices. If she saved passwords or account information, that's the smoking gun Hale wants. Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Ella, how exactly are you planning to access Maya's computer?" The question I'd been avoiding. "I don't know yet. Because breaking and entering won't exactly help your case with the FBI." She was right, but there had to be a way. Maya was careless with security. She used the same password for everything, never updated her software, clicked on obvious phishing emails. If I could get physical access to her devices... My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Lunch tomorrow? I owe you a proper thank you for being the best sister ever." The irony was suffocating. Maya wanted to thank me while simultaneously destroying my life. But her text gave me an idea. "Rachel, what if Maya invited me over? You're going to ask your sister to let you gather evidence against her. I'm going to ask my sister for lunch. What happens after that?" I trailed off, already planning. "Ella, this is dangerous. If she realizes what you're doing..." Maya doesn't think like that. She assumes everyone is as careless as she is. I was already typing a response to Maya's text. "I'd love lunch. Your place or mine?" Maya's response came immediately. "Mine! I want to show you my new art pieces. Plus, I'm making that pasta you love." Perfect! Maya's apartment would be full of evidence, and she was essentially inviting me to collect it. "Rachel, I need you to do something for me. I'm not helping you commit a felony. I need you to call me exactly 90 minutes after I arrive at Maya's apartment. Make it sound urgent, a work emergency that requires my immediate attention. That'll give me an excuse to leave if things go wrong." Rachel sighed. "Ella, are you sure about this? What if she's not as careless as you think? What if she's been planning for this possibility?" The thought had occurred to me. Maya might be reckless, but she wasn't stupid. If she suspected I was onto her, she might have taken precautions. Then I'll figure it out when I get there. "Rachel, I can't sit here and hope the FBI builds a case. Maya stole my identity. I'm taking it back." After hanging up, I spent 2 hours preparing. I configured my phone to automatically back up any photos or documents I captured. I researched Maya's building layout, identifying security cameras and exit routes. I even packed a small USB drive loaded with forensic software, though I hoped I wouldn't need it. Most importantly, I practiced my performance. I had to be the loving, unsuspecting sister who had no idea her world was crumbling. One wrong expression, one suspicious question, and Maya might realize the trap was closing. At 5 p.m., Agent Hale called. "Ms. Cruz, I've reviewed your evidence with the prosecutor. We're prepared to move forward, but we need more before we can obtain search warrants." "I'm working on that. How much time do I have?" "Not much. Financial crimes investigations move fast once they start. If your sister realizes she's under scrutiny, she might flee or destroy evidence." The pressure was mounting. Maya was smart enough to run if she felt cornered, and I couldn't risk her disappearing with my identity still compromised. "Agent Hale, I need you to trust me for 24 hours. I think I can get you what you need." "Miss Cruz, I hope you're not planning anything that could compromise this investigation." "I'm planning to have lunch with my sister. Nothing more." After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the darkened window. Tomorrow, I would sit across from Maya, smile and laugh, and pretend everything was normal, while secretly documenting evidence that could send her to federal prison. The woman looking back at me wasn't the sister who'd spent years cleaning up Maya's messes.
She was someone harder, more calculating. Someone who understood that love without boundaries wasn't love. It was enabling.
I thought about my father's letter, about his warning to protect myself, even from family. He'd known this day would come, known that Maya's choices would eventually force me to choose between saving her and saving myself. Tomorrow, I will make that choice. I spent the rest of the evening reviewing everything I knew about digital forensics, preparing for every scenario I could imagine. Maya had stolen my identity, but I was about to show her exactly who I really was. The hunter, not the prey. I arrived at Maya's River North loft the next afternoon carrying flowers and a bottle of wine, playing the role of the devoted sister perfectly. The building was exactly what I'd expected, trendy, expensive, and entirely beyond Maya's legitimate means. The doorman knew her by name, another sign that she'd been living well on stolen money. "Hermana!" She hugged me tightly, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume. Come in. I've been cooking all morning." Her loft was an open-concept space with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. Canvases lined the walls. Maya's latest artistic phase seemed to be abstract expressionism, bold colors and chaotic brushstrokes that somehow managed to look expensive despite their amateur execution. "Maya, this place is beautiful," I said, meaning it. The loft really was stunning, even if it was financed through identity theft. "Thanks. I finally feel like I'm getting my life together, having my own space, pursuing my art seriously." She gestured toward a canvas covered in violent slashes of red and black. "This piece is called Liberation. It's about breaking free from expectations." The irony was so thick, I nearly choked. Maya's liberation had come at the cost of my financial security, but she seemed completely oblivious to the contradiction. "It's very intense," I managed. Maya led me to the kitchen where she'd prepared an elaborate spread. Homemade pasta, artisanal bread, a salad that looked like it belonged to any restaurant. The ingredients alone probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. "This is incredible, Maya. You've really outdone yourself." I wanted to celebrate. She poured 2 glasses of champagne. Expensive champagne, I noticed. "I have some exciting news." My stomach dropped. "Oh. I've been accepted into this amazing art residency program in Barcelona. 6 months of studio space, living expenses covered, access to galleries throughout Europe." Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. "It's like a dream come true." Barcelona. 6 months in Europe. Maya was planning to flee the country, probably before the FBI investigation caught up with her. "That's wonderful," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "When does it start?" "Next month. I know it's short notice, but these opportunities don't wait." She clinked her glass against mine. Expensive champagne, I noticed. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Ella. All those years of support, believing in me when no one else did." I took a large sip of champagne to keep from screaming. Maya was toasting our sisterly bond while planning to escape justice using money she'd stolen from me? "I'm so proud of you," I lied smoothly. "You've worked so hard for this." During lunch, I played my part perfectly. I asked about her art, her plans for Barcelona, her excitement about the future. Maya chattered happily, completely relaxed, occasionally leaving her phone on the table when she got up to serve more food. Each time she stepped away, I memorized what I could see on her screen. Text messages to someone named Carlos about finalizing travel arrangements, an email confirmation for a flight to Barcelona in 3 weeks, banking app notifications that made my blood boil, alerts about account balances that should have been mine. "Maya, could I use your bathroom?" I asked after we'd finished eating. "Of course, down the hall, first door on the right."
Instead of going to the bathroom, I slipped into Maya's bedroom. Her laptop sat open on her nightstand, password screen glowing. I had maybe 30 seconds before she noticed I was gone.
Maya's password was the same one she'd used since high school, their childhood dog's name plus her birth year. Some things never changed. Her laptop unlocked immediately. I opened her browser and found exactly what Agent Hale needed. Saved passwords for all the fraudulent accounts, banking app logins, email threads with cryptocurrency exchanges discussing large transactions. Maya had kept everything, probably thinking she was too clever to get caught. I took photos with my phone, working as quickly as possible. Bank statements showing deposits from accounts opened in my name, screenshots of wire transfer confirmations, even a folder labeled EU Residency containing research about extradition laws. Ella, are you okay there? Just a minute, I called back, closing the laptop and hurrying to the actual bathroom. I flushed the toilet and ran water in the sink, trying to calm my racing heart. When I returned to the living room, Maya was washing dishes, humming contentedly. She looked so normal, so innocent. If I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have convinced myself this was all a misunderstanding. Maya, I hate to cut this short, but I should probably head back. Early client meeting tomorrow. Of course! Thanks for coming, Hermana. It means everything to have your support. She hugged me goodbye, and I had to force myself not to stiffen. This might be the last time Maya hugged me as a free woman. As I drove home, my phone rang. FBI agent Hale. Miss Cruz, do you have what we need? I have everything. Maya's planning to flee to Barcelona in 3 weeks. If you're going to move, it has to be soon. Can you meet me tonight? We'll need to review the evidence and prepare the operation. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up and pulled over to the side of the road. My hands were shaking, and I needed a moment to process what had just happened. I'd just gathered evidence that would destroy my sister's life. In a few days, FBI agents would knock on her door, and Maya's world would collapse. But as I sat in my car watching Chicago traffic flow past, I realized I felt something unexpected: relief. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't cleaning up Maya's mess. I wasn't enabling her destructive choices. I was finally protecting myself, just like Dad had warned me I might need to do. Maya had made her choice when she decided to steal from me. Now I am making mine. I pulled back into traffic and headed toward the FBI office, ready to set the trap that would give my sister exactly what she deserved: consequences. 3 days later, I sat in an unmarked FBI van parked across from Maya's building, my heart hammering against my ribs. Agent Hale and 2 other agents were reviewing the warrant one final time, while I stared up at the windows of Maya's loft, wondering if she was home, if she suspected anything, if some part of her knew this moment was coming. Ms. Cruz, are you sure you want to be here for this? It's not too late to wait at the office. I need to see her face, I said quietly. I need her to know that I'm the one who stopped her. The evidence I gathered had been enough for a federal warrant. Maya's laptop contained a digital treasure trove of incriminating material, not just proof of my identity theft, but evidence of other schemes I hadn't even discovered. She'd been running a sophisticated operation, using my credentials to open accounts for other people, taking cuts of fraudulent loans, building a network of financial crime that stretched far beyond my stolen identity. Agent Hale's radio crackled. Target is in the building. No secondary exits observed. Copy that. We're moving. I followed the agents into Maya's building, my legs feeling weak and strange. The doorman barely glanced at us. Federal agents had a way of commanding authority that made questions unnecessary. In the elevator, Agent Hale handed me a small recording device. If she tries to talk to you, let her. Sometimes family members say things to each other they wouldn't say to law enforcement. The elevator stopped at Maya's floor. As we walked down the hallway, I could hear music coming from her apartment, something classical and upbeat. Maya was probably painting, lost in her creative world, completely unaware that her criminal empire was about to crumble. Agent Hale knocked firmly on the door. Federal agents, open the door, please. The music stopped. Footsteps approached the door, hesitated. Who is it? FBI. We have a warrant to search these premises.
The deadbolt clicked, the chain rattled, and then Maya's door swung open. She stood there in paint-splattered clothes, her face cycling through confusion, fear, and then shock when she saw me standing behind the agents. "Ella? What's going on? Why are you with—" "Maya Cruz, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes." Agent Hale stepped forward with handcuffs, while another agent moved past Maya into the apartment. "What? No! There's been a mistake! Ella, tell them there's been a mistake!" I stepped forward, meeting my sister's desperate eyes. "There's no mistake, Maya. I know what you did." The color drained from her face. You did this? You did this. I just made sure you got caught." Maya lunged toward me, but Agent Hale caught her arm. "Maya, you need to calm down. You have the right to remain silent." As he read her Miranda rights, Maya stared at me with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. "How could you do this to me? I'm your sister." "You were my sister," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Sisters don't steal each other's identities. Sisters don't commit federal crimes using family as cover." Inside the apartment, agents were systematically searching Maya's belongings. I watched them bag her laptop, her phones, boxes of financial documents she'd apparently kept as souvenirs of her crimes. "Agent Ramirez, look at this," one of the agents called from Maya's bedroom. He held up a manila folder thick with papers. "Looks like she was planning multiple identity thefts. Driver's licenses, social security cards, bank account information for at least 6 different people." My blood ran cold. Maya hadn't just stolen from me, she'd been building a criminal enterprise. How many other families had she destroyed? How many other sisters were sitting somewhere wondering why their credit was ruined, their accounts drained? "Agent Ramirez, look at this," one of the agents called from Maya's bedroom. He held up a manila folder thick with papers. "Looks like she was planning multiple identity thefts. Driver's licenses, social security cards, bank account information for at least 6 different people." My blood ran cold. Maya hadn't just stolen from me, she'd been building a criminal enterprise. How many other families had she destroyed? How many other sisters were sitting somewhere wondering why their credit was ruined, their accounts drained? "Maya," Agent Hale said, his voice professionally calm, "we're going to need you to come with us for questioning. You can make this easier on yourself by cooperating." "Cooperating?" Maya's voice was shrill now, panic overtaking shock. "Ella, please, we can work this out. I'll pay everything back. I promise. Just tell them this was a misunderstanding." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Even now, caught red-handed with evidence of multiple felonies, she was still trying to manipulate her way out of consequences. She wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she'd been caught. "Maya, you stole $365,000 from me. You opened accounts in my name, destroyed my credit, and nearly got me arrested for your crimes. You were planning to flee to Barcelona and leave me to deal with the FBI investigation alone." Maya's face crumpled. "I was going to pay you back. The art residency was going to change everything. I would have made enough money to what? Continue being a criminal overseas?" I shook my head. "Maya, you kept detailed records of every crime you committed. You weren't planning to pay anyone back. You were planning to disappear." Agent Hale stepped between us. "Miss Cruz, we're going to need you to process your sister now. You can wait downstairs if you'd like." As they led Maya toward the elevator, she turned back to me one last time. "Ella, please, don't let them do this. You're all the family I have left." "You should have thought of that before you decided to steal my identity." The elevator doors closed, and Maya was gone. I stood alone in her apartment while agents continued their search, surrounded by the evidence of her deception. Expensive furniture, designer clothes,
Art supplies that cost more than most people's monthly salary. All of it purchased with money stolen from me and God knows who else. Agent Hale returned 30 minutes later. "We're going to need you to come in tomorrow to finalize your statement. But Miss Cruz, I want you to know, your evidence was crucial. Without your cooperation, your sister might have gotten away with this." How much trouble is she in? Given the scope of the fraud and the number of victims, she's looking at significant federal time. The prosecutor will probably offer a plea deal if she cooperates and provides information about other victims, but he shrugged. "Your sister has built a substantial criminal case against herself." As I drove home through Chicago traffic, it felt strangely empty. Relief mixed with grief, satisfaction tinged with guilt. Maya was finally facing consequences for her actions, but those consequences would destroy her life. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "How did it go?"
I typed back, "It's over. Maya's been arrested. Are you okay?" I considered the question. Was I okay? My sister was in federal custody. My identity was stolen but would be restored. My financial accounts would eventually be recovered. My reputation was intact. But my family was broken beyond repair. "I will be," I texted back. That night, I sat in my apartment and reread my father's letter one more time. Protect yourself, even from family, especially from my family. He'd been right. Love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was enabling, and I'd enabled Maya for so long that she'd believed she could get away with anything. Now she was learning otherwise, and so was I. I put the letter away and looked out at the Chicago skyline, my reflection superimposed over the city lights. For the first time in months, the woman looking back at me was free. Free from Maya's chaos, free from the burden of cleaning up someone else's messes, free to be Ella Cruz again. My identity was finally my own. 2 weeks after Maya's arrest, I watched from my car as a moving crew emptied her River North loft. The FBI had seized most of her assets as evidence, but the few personal items she'd been allowed to keep filled only 3 boxes. Her expensive furniture, the designer clothes, the art supplies that had enabled her creative fantasy, all of it was gone, either confiscated or sold to begin paying restitution to her victims. Maya herself had been released on bail. Staying with a friend's couch would be her home until her sentencing. The federal prosecutor had offered a plea deal: cooperate fully, provide information about her other victims, and serve 18 months in minimum security prison plus 5 years probation. The alternative was a trial that could result in a decade behind bars. My phone had been ringing constantly since news of the arrest leaked. Maya's friends called to ask if I was really pressing charges against my own sister, art gallery owners wondering if I'd provide character references, even distant relatives reaching out to guilt me into fixing this family problem privately. I'd stopped answering unknown numbers. The only call that mattered came from Agent Hale 3 days after the arrest. "Miss Cruz, we've identified 11 additional victims of your sister's identity theft ring. The total damage appears to be over $2 million. $2 million. Maya hadn't just stolen from me, she'd built an empire of financial fraud that had destroyed lives across 3 states. Families who'd lost their homes, students whose educations were derailed, elderly people who'd seen their retirement savings vanish. How many people knew? I'd asked. Your sister appears to have worked mostly alone, but she had connections to people who provided stolen identity information. We're still investigating the full scope. Alone. Despite everything, that detail had made my chest tighten with unexpected sadness. Maya had built this criminal enterprise by herself, too proud or too paranoid to trust anyone with her secrets. Even when she was destroying lives, she'd been isolated. Rachel found me in my apartment that evening, staring at my laptop screen without really seeing it. She'd brought Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine, settling onto my couch like she planned to stay until I started acting human again.
Ella, you haven't left this apartment except for work in 2 weeks. That's not healthy. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're sitting in the dark, obsessing over news articles about your sister's arrest. She gestured toward my coffee table, which was covered with printed FBI reports and financial recovery documents. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't delivered? I couldn't remember. Since Maya's arrest, food had become an afterthought, sleep elusive, work the only thing that felt normal. Rachel, what if I was wrong? What if there was another way to handle this? She set down her wine glass with more force than necessary. Ella, your sister stole over $2 million from multiple people. She was planning to flee the country. She kept detailed records of her crimes like trophies. What other way was there? I could have confronted her privately first, give her a chance to come clean, make things right. And then what? She pays back $2 million with what money? She was already planning to run away to Barcelona. She leaned forward, forcing me to meet her eyes. Ella, Maya made these choices. You didn't force her to steal identities. You didn't make her target elderly victims or students. She did that. My phone buzzed with yet another text from an unknown number. I glanced at it, expecting another guilt trip from one of Maya's friends. Instead, it was Maya herself. Ella, I need to see you. Please. There are things I need to say before sentencing. Rachel read the message over my shoulder. You don't owe her anything. She's my sister. She was your sister. Now she's a convicted felon who destroyed your life. But even as Rachel said it, I knew I would eventually respond to Maya's text. Despite everything she'd done, despite the evidence of her calculated betrayal, some part of me still remembered the little girl who'd crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, who'd cried when our parents died, who'd once looked at me like I could solve any problem. That night, I dreamed about Maya as a child, maybe 7 years old, sitting in our father's workshop while he taught her to sand wood. She'd been so focused, so determined to do it perfectly, tongue poking out in concentration. In the dream, Dad looked at me and said, "She has good hands, mija. She just needs to learn what to build with them." I woke up with tears on my cheeks, missing my father with an intensity that surprised me. He would have known what to do about Maya. He would have found a way to love her while still holding her accountable. Maybe that's what his letter had been trying to teach me, that love and consequences weren't opposites. They were partners. I reached for my phone and typed a response to Maya's text. We can meet, but only with your lawyer present and only to discuss your victim impact statement. Her reply came immediately. Thank you. I know I don't deserve this. No, I typed back. You don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because our father would have wanted me to give you one last chance to do the right thing. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her final message. I understand. Looking out my window at the Chicago skyline, I realized Rachel was right about one thing. I needed to start living again. Maya's choices had consumed enough of my life. Tomorrow, I will meet with my sister one last time. After that, I would focus on rebuilding what she'd tried to destroy. My credit, my peace of mind, and my faith that justice was worth pursuing even when it meant watching family face the consequences of their choices. Especially then. The Federal Courthouse Cafe was nearly empty at 10 a.m., fluorescent lights humming over institutional furniture and bitter coffee. I sat across from Maya and her public defender, a young woman named Jennifer Chen, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Maya appeared smaller than I remembered, wearing a plain gray sweater and jeans instead of her usual artistic flair. Her famous smile was nowhere to be found, replaced by dark circles under red-rimmed eyes. Jail had stripped away her casual confidence, revealing someone I almost didn't recognize. Thank you for coming, Maya said quietly, her hands wrapped around a paper coffee cup like it might provide warmth for more than just her fingers. Your lawyer said you wanted to discuss your victim impact statement. I kept my voice professional, distant. What do you need from me? Maya glanced at Jennifer, who nodded encouragingly. I need to understand what I did to you.
Not just the money, I know about the money, but what it felt like when you realized it was me. The question caught me off guard. I expected apologies, maybe manipulation, definitely self-pity. I hadn't expected Maya to ask about my emotional experience. Why does that matter now? Because the judge wants to hear how my crimes affected real people, and because I've been sitting in a cell for 2 weeks thinking about that look on your face when the FBI arrested me. Maya's voice cracked slightly. You weren't surprised, Ella. You knew it was me before they knocked on my door. I took a sip of terrible coffee, buying time to organize my thoughts. I suspected for weeks, but I kept hoping I was wrong. When did you know for sure? When I found the credit inquiry from First National Lending. You used my information to research loan options, probably thinking I'd never notice a soft pull on my credit report. I met her eyes directly. But I notice everything, Maya. It's what I do for a living. She flinched. I thought I was being careful. You were careful about covering your digital tracks. You weren't careful about understanding who you were stealing from. I leaned forward. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate suspicious activity on my own accounts? I thought I could pay it back before you noticed. With what money, Maya? You were unemployed. You had no income, no prospects, no plan beyond stealing enough to fund your lifestyle until you could disappear to Europe? Jennifer Chen cleared her throat. Maya, perhaps you should focus on the accountability aspects we discussed.
Maya nodded, then looked at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Genuine shame. Ella, I need you to know that when I started this, I told myself it was temporary, just enough to get back on my feet, then I'd confess and pay you back. But it escalated. It became addicting, having money without having to work for it, being able to buy things without checking my account balance, feeling like I was finally successful at something. She paused. And it was so easy. Your information was right there in your home office. Your passwords were saved on your computer. You trusted me completely. The admission hit like a physical blow. You planned this while house-sitting for me? I researched it while you were in San Francisco. I told myself I was just looking, just seeing if it was possible. But by the time you came home, I'd already opened the first account. I thought about coming home from that conference, noticing small things out of place, dismissing my suspicions because I trusted Maya completely. She'd been calculating my destruction while I worried about her well-being. Maya, you didn't just steal money from me. You stole my sense of security, my ability to trust my own instincts, my faith in family. I kept my voice steady, but my hands were shaking. For months, I questioned everything. Was I being paranoid? Was I imagining signs that weren't there? You made me doubt my own judgment. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. You targeted other people too. Elderly victims, students, people who couldn't afford to lose what you stole. Did you feel sorry for them while you were spending their money? Maya's face crumbled. I didn't think about them as real people. They were just numbers on screens, names on applications. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I know how that sounds. I know it makes me a monster. It makes you a criminal who chose to see victims as abstractions so you could sleep at night. Jennifer Chen intervened. Miss Cruz, Maya has accepted responsibility for her actions. She's prepared to pay full restitution and cooperate with ongoing investigations. Because she got caught, I said bluntly. If the FBI hadn't arrested her, she'd be in Barcelona right now, probably setting up new schemes with stolen European identities. Maya was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her entire body. You're right. You're absolutely right. I would have kept going because I didn't know how to stop. For a moment, I felt the familiar urge to comfort her, to pull her into a hug and promise everything would be okay. The instinct was so strong, I actually started to reach across the table. Then I remembered my father's letter. You cannot save someone who refuses to save themselves. Maya,
I need you to understand something. When I gave evidence to the FBI, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to save myself from the consequences of your choices. I know. And I need you to understand that our relationship is over. Not because I don't love you, but because love doesn't mean enabling someone to destroy themselves and others. Maya nodded through her tears. I understand. I wanted you to know that I'm not the same person who stole from you. Prison, facing what I did, seeing how it hurt you, it changed something in me. I studied my sister's face, looking for signs of manipulation, for the practiced expressions that had fooled me for so many years. Instead, I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse mixed with determination. Maya, I hope that's true, but change requires more than feeling sorry. It requires choices every day to be better than you were. I know. I'm going to try. Try isn't enough anymore, Maya. Do better. For your other victims, for yourself, and for the memory of who we used to be as sisters. As I walked away, Maya called out one last time. Ella, I love you. I know I don't have the right to say that anymore, but I needed you to know. I stopped at the cafe door, but didn't turn around. I love you too, Maya. That's why I can't save you from this. Outside the courthouse, I breathed in Chicago's cold November air and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Maya would face her consequences, and I would rebuild my life. For the first time since this nightmare began, those felt like two separate problems, with two separate solutions. 3 months after Maya's sentencing, I stood in front of a room of identity theft victims at the Chicago Public Library, preparing to deliver my first workshop on financial fraud recovery. The 18 people in folding chairs represented a cross-section of Maya's victims: an elderly man whose retirement account had been drained, a college student whose credit was
destroyed before she'd even graduated, a young mother who'd lost her savings to fraudulent wire transfers. Agent Hale sat in the back row, having become an unexpected ally in my new advocacy work. After Maya's case closed, he'd approached me about consulting on cybersecurity issues for the Bureau. "You have a unique perspective," he'd said. "You understand both the technical aspects of identity theft and the emotional impact on victims." Good morning, everyone. My name is Ella Cruz, and 6 months ago, I was sitting where you are now, confused, angry, and wondering if I'd ever feel secure again. I clicked to my first slide, showing a timeline of financial recovery steps. I'm here to tell you that you will recover, both financially and emotionally, but it requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to fight for your own identity. The elderly man, Henry Martinez, raised his hand. "Ms. Cruz, how long did it take you to get your accounts restored?" 4 months for the major accounts, 6 months for my credit score to return to normal. But Mr. Martinez, I had advantages. I work in cybersecurity, I understood the system, and I had resources to hire attorneys. The process is designed to be difficult, but there are ways to navigate it efficiently. I spent the next hour walking them through dispute processes, documentation requirements, and legal resources. But more importantly, I talked about the psychological recovery that nobody warns you about. Identity theft doesn't just steal your money. It steals your sense of control, your trust in institutions, and sometimes your faith in people close to you. That healing takes longer than fixing credit reports, and it's just as important. After the workshop, a young woman named Sarah approached me. "Ms. Cruz, I read about your sister's case in the news. How do you move forward when the person who hurt you was your family?" It was a question I'd been expecting but dreading. Maya's story had been covered extensively in local media, partly because family-perpetrated identity theft was relatively rare, partly because the scope of her crimes had been so extensive. You move forward by accepting that love and accountability aren't opposites. I love my sister, but I couldn't love her enough to save her from the consequences of her choices.
Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the full weight of what they've done. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. Do you still talk to her? No. Maya is serving her sentence at a minimum security facility in Indiana. She'll be released next year, but our relationship is over. That doesn't mean I hate her. It means I've chosen to protect myself and build a life that doesn't revolve around managing someone else's chaos. After the last participant left, Agent Hale approached me with a coffee and a proposal. Ella, I've been authorized to offer you a consulting contract with the Bureau. We need someone who can train agents on the psychological aspects of financial crimes, particularly cases involving family members or trusted relationships. The offer was tempting, both professionally and personally. Working with the FBI would give me access to resources and cases that could help me expand my advocacy work. What would that involve? Training sessions for agents, consultation on complex cases, maybe some victim outreach work like what you did today. He paused. There's also a new initiative focusing on prevention, working with financial institutions to identify suspicious patterns before victims are completely destroyed. Prevention. The word resonated with something deep in my chest. Catching people like Maya before they steal millions instead of after. Exactly. Your sister was skilled, but she wasn't unique. There are patterns to this kind of fraud, psychological profiles we can develop. With your technical background and personal experience, you could help us prevent other families from going through what you did. I thought about the victims in today's workshop, about the college student whose dreams had been derailed by Maya's greed, about the elderly man who'd worked 40 years for the retirement savings Maya had stolen. If I could prevent even one family from experiencing that devastation, the work would be worth it. Agent Hale, I accept, but I have one condition. What's that? When Maya is released, I want to be notified, not because I plan to contact her, but because I want to know when she's back in the world. He nodded. That's standard for victims in federal cases. We'll keep you informed. That evening, I called Rachel to tell her about the FBI consulting offer and the workshop. She'd been my anchor through everything, the friend who'd helped me stay strong when familial guilt threatened to undermine my resolve. Ella, I'm proud of you. 6 months ago, you were drowning in Maya's mess. Now you're building something meaningful from that experience.
It doesn't feel meaningful yet. It feels like I'm still figuring out who I am without Maya's chaos defining my life. Maybe that's exactly what meaningful looks like. Choosing who you want to be instead of just reacting to what others do to you. After hanging up, I walked to my window and looked out at the Chicago skyline. The city lights reflected off the river, creating patterns that shifted and changed with the current. Like identity, I thought. Always moving, always evolving, but fundamentally yours to shape. Maya had tried to steal my identity, but she'd only taken the external markers. Names on accounts, numbers on credit reports, signatures on fraudulent documents. The real Ella Cruz, the woman who'd built a business from nothing and refused to be destroyed by betrayal, was still here. Tomorrow, I will start my new consulting work with the FBI. Next month, I will launch a nonprofit focused on identity theft prevention. And someday, maybe years from now, I might even think about Maya without feeling the sharp edge of betrayal. But tonight, I was content to stand in my apartment, looking out at my city, knowing that my name, my reputation, and my future were finally completely my own. 1 year later, I received a text from an unknown number. Ella, it's Maya. I was released yesterday. I know you don't owe me anything, but could we meet? Just once. I have something to give you. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. 1 hour. Millennium Park Cafe. Come alone. Maya was already waiting when I arrived, sitting at a cornered table with 2 coffee cups. She looked different, thinner, older, wearing clothes that actually fit her budget. Her hair was shorter, practical instead of stylish. Prison had stripped away her artifice, leaving someone I barely recognized.
"Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." I almost didn't. I studied her face, looking for signs of the manipulation I'd learned to recognize. Instead, I saw exhaustion and something that might have been peace. "You said you had something to give me." She reached into a worn canvas bag and pulled out a cashier's check. "It's not everything I owe you, but it's a start. $18,000 from my prison job and some artwork I sold." I looked at the check, surprised by the gesture. "Maya, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I stole from you and from 10 other people. This is what accountability looks like." Her voice was steady, matter of fact. "I'm working 2 jobs now, living in a halfway house. It'll take me years to pay everyone back, but I'm going to do it." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened settling between us like a third person at the table. "I heard about your work with the FBI and the nonprofit. You're helping people like the ones I hurt." "I'm trying to prevent other families from going through what we did." "Good. That's—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "That's justice, I think. Taking something broken and making it useful." I folded the check and put it in my purse. "Maya, you need to understand something. This doesn't fix what happened between us." "I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Ella. I'm not asking to be sisters again." Her eyes were clear, direct. "I just wanted you to see that I'm not the same person who stole from you. Prison taught me things about myself I didn't want to know." "What kind of things?" "That I was empty inside, trying to fill that emptiness with other people's lives. Your life, your identity, your security." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I had to learn how to be Maya Cruz instead of just Maya who takes from Ella." For the first time in over a year, I felt something other than anger when I looked at my sister. Not forgiveness exactly, but recognition. The woman sitting across from me was taking responsibility without excuses, working to repair damage without expecting absolution. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now I keep working, keep paying back what I stole, keep proving to myself that I can be someone worth being." Maya managed a small, genuine smile. "And you keep helping people rebuild their lives. We both keep moving forward, just separately." I stood to leave, then hesitated. "Maya, for what it's worth, I hope you succeed. Not for me, but for you." "Thank you. And, Ella, I'm proud of who you've become. You were always the strong one, but now you're something more. You're free." Walking away from that cafe, I realized Maya was right. I was free. Free from the burden of managing her chaos, free from the guilt of family obligation, free to build a life defined by my choices rather than her crises.
My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "How did it go?" I typed back, "It went well. Maya's finally growing up." "And how are you?" I looked up at the Chicago skyline, at the city that had witnessed my destruction and rebuilding. "I'm good. Really good." For the first time in my life, I was just Ella Cruz, not Maya's sister, not the family fixer, not the woman cleaning up someone else's mess. Just me, walking through my city, carrying my own name with pride. That evening, I framed the cashier's check instead of depositing it. Not because I forgave Maya, but because it represented something important. The moment my sister finally chose accountability over entitlement. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you can at least respect the ashes. My identity was finally completely my own, and Maya's was hers to shape, one responsible choice at a time. The sister who stole my identity was gone. In her place was a woman I barely knew but could finally respect. That felt like the best possible ending to our story.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.